Hey everybody, and welcome back. Today I'm going to share with you my impression of what was kind of like a roller coaster for me of the NF Audio NM2 Professional Series. The roller coaster is like this. I first got these and had a terrific out-of-box unboxing, I should say, impression. The box itself was pretty standard fare, sleeve with an interior, container. I opened it up, and this was the first surprise. It opens up with like a magnetic clasp, even though it looks like cheap cardboard. They put enough attention to detail. They have the presence of mind to put just a little piece of magnetic material on the end of the cardboard so it would have a satisfying opening and closing experience, so it would feel secure. Little detail, I was like, okay, that's nice. I open it up, and it has this CD disc looking thing. CD disc, that's redundant, isn't it? CD already stands for compact disc. It had a CD appearing foam disc that would hold the earphones. Okay? And underneath it, it had the nice arrangement of its tips nicely placed in that shape. And I just thought it was very cohesive in its, and attention to detail was paid on the packaging. And it also had this like reflective edge to kind of imitate the reflectiveness of a disc. It really spoke to me that they cared this much. It was something different. You know, you get the same thing all the time, just a rectangular piece of generic foam with inserts for the buds. And this time they actually tried to be a little more playful with it, which was honestly very nice. But then you look at these, and they are the cheapest looking translucent blue plastic, very lightweight. You're like, what am I going to get out of this? And to be honest, I don't think that's fair to them, because these drivers and any of these earphones are probably just as light, and the main thing that's actually changing the weight of any of these buds out there is probably just the chassis that they build these things out of. Like, here is the EJ07 from Shure, and it's made of metal, so of course it's going to be heavier, even if the drivers inside were the same weight. So it's not fair to say, oh, it's bad because it feels light. It's just, but unfortunately, if you're going to make a product and you want to impress people with it feeling like luxurious, there is a relationship between how heavy or metallic things feel and how much people think the product is worth a high dollar. So I go into this having mixed feelings before I even listen to it. The packaging is very much mindful and attention to detail. The wire is cheap and whatever. The chassis of the IEM is cheap or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, what's going to happen here? So I try these on, and my very first impression was, okay, they're not that great. They're like kind of fun. I can feel where other people might be excited by these, but I wasn't sure how much excitement I was getting or how interesting, what kind of flavor they were spinning here that was different or unique in a way that I would want to go for it compared to other stuff in its category, other stuff in its price bracket. I just didn't know what I was getting. My first take was, it wasn't very separated. It wasn't very airy and clear. It was just like, yeah, it just basically hits the music fine. There's maybe one spot somewhere in the mid that's elevated, I'm hearing. I wasn't quite able to place it at the time. And I was feeling like a B- or B. Nothing stood out in that character to impress me or make me have a lot of fun. But then here's the weird thing that happened. I try these on again and again and again. Opinions not changing. Same reference playlist, other tracks too. I'm trying to give it a fair shot. And then this very morning, when I was in the car doing some errands, I put these on thinking this is the last time. I always like to have a final take in my ears the day that I'm going to make an impression, just so it's fresh in my memory. I was expecting to hear the same thing I always did, and I did hear the same thing, but this time it sounded nice. Like, it felt nice. I couldn't tell you that, like, oh, it burned in or the drivers changed because it was playing something differently. It was just that emotionally I was tuned in this time. Maybe it was prior experience. And I think this is such an important thing to say. I think people's relative experiences, that is what they've listened to recently and where their gauge is set, can drastically impact how they feel about a newcomer. That's my theory anyway, okay? Because I was coming, this is my speculation, but I would recently came from something like the Dauntless, which is very, very bright and kind of peaky in some places and fatiguing. And coming from that recent impression, going back to this from the Dauntless, I suddenly, instead of feeling mud, or instead of feeling like it was lacking cohesion and it was just kind of not well separated, instead what I felt was, ooh, that is easy to listen to. And I like that, because I was coming from the Dauntless before, which was not easy to listen to. You see what I'm saying here? I'm thinking that's it, but I can't lie to you and just say go with my old impression. I'm going to tell you the full truth. I've had a bad impression of these when I was coming from more like superbly clean and punchy and thumpy stuff like the Obsidian and the Timeless, like real S-Class stuff. If you go from there to this, you might be underwhelmed. If you're coming from a Kato or something that's in the $200, $300 price range that you love, I think you may be disappointed with this. Even when you go from the Tin HiFi T3 Plus, which I also have in my tryout bag here, which I've recently recommended, partnered with HiFi Go, and they ran a raffle with collaboration with me to give this away to somebody. I'm not giving it away. They are giving it away. YouTube, don't cancel me. I'm not the person who's holding the giveaway. They are. It's their product. But they just stuck my name on the sign so it would be advertisement for me. Okay? YouTube people, don't cancel me. So I go from the Tin HiFi T3 Plus, the Obsidian, the Timeless, all this wonderful stuff. And originally, that's what I was comparing these to, and I felt underwhelmed. But if you're going from something like the Dauntless or other gear, you can kind of come to appreciate this. And you know what the funny thing is? Even when I went back from the Tin HiFi T3 Plus one more time to the NF Audio NM2, I didn't lose my appreciation for it. In fact, when I compared the two, the Tin HiFi T3 Plus and the NM2 on the same reference playlist, I was like, no. I was actually enjoying, whether or not it was better in terms of pure technicals, it wasn't. I was enjoying the NM2 more in that instance this morning than the Tin HiFi T3 Plus. It's a wild thing this is. It started out all the way as a B-, and now it's competing up at the B+++. I think it's 3 pluses with my recently favored T3 Plus, which also has the word plus in it. So a lot of plussing. So what you could say the NF2 gets wrong is it does not have a clean separation with the instruments. It doesn't have this crystalline like clarity around the edges of notes. It doesn't sound like things are articulated all the time very well. In fact, a lot of the time it sounds like there's a bit of a slur between the notes, like they are kind of melding together at times, especially in busy tracks. But even basic ones, like with just an acoustic and a singer, it can feel like that. But as weird as it is, and as much as I wouldn't say that that is an attractive trait to have, and technically, objectively, people will mark that kind of description as inferior, I actually got from that experience an enjoyable listening time. I listened to Heart of Gold from Neil Young, Rolling by Leska, which is an electronic track, Under the Bridge from Red Hot Chili Peppers, my favorite jazz album by Esbjorn Svensson Trio. With my first half of my playlist, I was really enjoying sitting back, pumping up the volume, never feeling overwhelmed or fatigued by overly separated and crystally edged notes. But then, if you go from the NF Audio NM2 back to the Tin HiFi T3 Plus, there are places to enjoy the T3 Plus. When I went into the later half of my playlist, I was enjoying The Mile by Dead Leather Circus. Then, if you go to other tracks like Hurt from the Hurt cover from Yoon Sun Na, or if you go to Just the Way You Are by Billy Joel. There are tracks that are vocal intensive and where you really want to hear the separation of the acoustics. There are times where that pays off for the T3 Plus. So sometimes you'll want the articulation of the T3 Plus, and sometimes you'll want the smooth, less separated, but in a way more interesting, almost nostalgic and old school sound of the NM2. It's such a strange thing. And I'm sure people are going to have different experiences with different tips. Don't get me started with tips, okay? But with the stock tips of the NM2, which I think I did use on these, even though I didn't take them out from the base, the other tips they had, I used the stock tips that came with them, that came on them, and I enjoyed the heck out of the NM2. So, guys, I don't know what to say except I'm going to have a demo of these. I'm going to promise you I'm going to have a video where the NM2s are at least part of it, because I think comparing them to the T3 Plus and other budget things is important to do. I think there is something there for some people. I definitely think there are going to be people who don't like them at all, who do find a bad impression where I first found a bad impression. But I think there are people who are going to find the good qualities, the quality of engagement and smoothness and nostalgic feel, and the vocals on the NM2 are also good. When I looked at the T3 Plus, when I listened to the T3 Plus back and forth to the NM2, one of the things that stood out the most, especially on male vocals, when I listened to Heart of Gold with Neil Young just sounded so much better, so much more visceral to me on the NM2 compared to the T3 Plus. The T3 Plus is so balanced in the mid-range that the male vocals don't always sing above the other instruments when you want the vocalist to stand above the rest. Okay, so the NM2 treats male vocals right. It leads the male vocals in front of the instruments, where honestly I think they should be, but you will lose out in some tracks where it could be a little more busy. If the rock song needs to have really articulate separation of the instruments, you won't necessarily get that with the NM2, and you may prefer the T3 Plus. It's a back and forth, and I think you could throw this anywhere in my B tier, compared to anything else. It could be worse or better than anything else. It's really kind of whether you're going to enjoy the NM2 more than something else or less than something else is really going to be dependent on your library, on the specific masters and tracks that you have. And I think it's going to depend heavily, of course, like it always does, on your tastes. But if just the right things line up for you, I genuinely think some people would actually love the NM2s in their collection. Male vocals are great. Things sound muddy, but in a kind of nice way, if that makes any sense. I like the lack of separation. It's different, but it handles it well. You're relaxed when you listen to it. It's never seeming too loud to me, at least with the stock tips that I see on here. I like them. I was torn about it, but I have to say my takeaway at this point in time is I'm a fan. Yeah. All right, guys, stay tuned for more videos, especially the demos that will come out for these and other gear that I've not been demoing for you recently. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out my link for my garage sale where I'm selling recently reviewed gear. I keep them in good condition. And consider supporting me on Patreon, where I do a giveaway once a month. The only thing you have to pay for in my giveaway is shipping. All right, guys, see you for the next one.